Today's guest on a Life and a Living podcast is Rick Maurer. Now, Rick hails from Virginia in the United States. He's an expert on change and managing change and leading change. He's the author of a number of books. He wrote a book called The Beyond the Wall of Resistance in the 1990s, and he's written a few others, but we're also talking about his most recent book, which is about seizing these moments of possibility, where we talk about when we're actually leading change, how do we actually lead people through change? How do we find that energy that sustains throughout a process of change? How do we engage people in it? And how do we actually make people feel that they can be curious, that they can question, that they can challenge, and that it is part of the process? Because at the end of the day, it's about, moving towards a better place. So Rick is a very engaging individual, a very engaging author and consultant, has worked globally with a huge array of companies, that many of whom you would know by name. And he really has written a very thoughtful and reflective book on change. And I really would encourage you to go and buy it. But in the meantime, sit back and listen to the very interesting Rick Maurer. Rick, thank you so much indeed for joining me here today. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
Listen, this will be an interesting conversation. You wrote the book, I think it's called Beyond the Wall of Resistance. I get that right, in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And, you've worked globally in organizations on the topic of change. But you've written a new book called Seizing Moments of Possibility. And I was just wondering, actually, when you look at that, and we talk more about that book, and because both are about change, have we got better or worse at change?
It's a great question, and the answer is really a pretty sad question. First of all, I haven't seen studies in recent years. They may be out there, but I'm missing them. But basically, when I hear clients talk, the conversations are still the same as they were when I started writing about this stuff 25 years ago. Now, the playing field is different. There's a lot more globalization. There's a lot more virtual stuff, all of that. But my whole niche is, why do people support us? Why do they resist us? And those are still huge questions for people. And we don't seem to be getting any better at it. In fact, because the pace of change has actually expanded over the last 25 years, in some ways we're a little bit worse because we have more stuff. We're juggling more balls.
Because you'd kind of think, and if you're looking at it one way, since we've had so much change, and you're right, the speed of change has just been, incredible over the last number of years. But since we've had so much change, we've actually experienced more change. And you would think that if we're experiencing more change, we'd get better at it, not stay the same.
Well, and not only that, I agree with you, John, but not only that, there are so many good resources out there to help people with change management and project management. About 3 years ago, there's a thing in sports called unforced errors, and that is where the player drops the ball and there's no good reason. They just were paying attention to something else. And I started noticing all these things that were absolutely avoidable. And so I'm looking at my shelf. In my other office, I've got a bookshelf, and I've got one whole shelf just dedicated to change management and leadership and that. And I thought, what do these things all have in common, including my stuff? And it was like, all of them ought to have a little sticker on the back that reads, "Warning, batteries not included." That we've got these good techniques and we just sort of assume that they'll just run by themselves. If I go to the meetings, I fill in these forms, everything will be okay. And it gives this false illusion that we're actually making progress and we're getting the kind of support we need. I hate to be cynical, but
yeah. But what are the batteries that we need? I mean, what are the things that we need to put in there? I mean, I thought your comment about the warning sticker was lovely. I loved that. But but what is it that actually we need to inject into that to make change happen? Because the fact of the matter is that we need to manage change. We need to cope with change. We need to deal with it, and we need to somehow find a way of controlling it as well.
Yeah, we do. The big deal, the big thing is support. And by support, I mean that we have the energy to create and sustain forward momentum. So it's not just a touchy-feely, let's stand in a circle and hold hands kind of support. It's like people come to a meeting and you can feel the anticipation in the air because they want to be there. You know, that when they get into implementation, a lot of that's a place where a lot of changes die because the leaders have moved on to something else and people are just going through the motions so they can get back to their real work. But when you see it done right, it's like athletes or professional musicians who take the details seriously. I mean, there's that commitment to mastery, if you will. That's the kind of energy you need. You need to walk into one of those routine implementation meetings and you can feel the excitement because people care about doing it right. And because people are so busy, and also that's not what we pay attention to, it gets overlooked and we take a look just at the technical things and are we on page 42 of our plan? Are we on, that sort of thing.
Right, yeah. And the book that you just recently, I think it was just published last month, wasn't it correct? The Seizing Moments.
Yeah, the end of April, yeah.
End of April, yeah. So Seizing Moments of Possibility. So just talk to me about that book and talk to me about what you mean by these moments of possibility.
Sure thing. Often what happens when we're doing a big project or a big change, I mean, people will say, well, okay, we've got to build support. We've got to get people involved. And so they'll hold some big event. And I call this the Big Bang approach to change. So I have this big event, a lot of energy, a lot of great conversations, and people walk out. And as a friend of mine said, I walked out of that meeting like I was walking on air. It was so exciting. And then nothing happened for a week, for a month, and 2 months. And it just sapped out. And it gives us the false illusion that by holding that meeting, we've now given energy to the project forever and always. The truth of the matter is we need to build support in to every step along the way. And I just give you an analogy. A coffee shop near me is finally open again. And when I go there and get in line, invariably there's somebody who's ordering a latte. And I have never, ever heard that person go, hey, give me a latte, but hold the milk. Because you can't do that. A latte is a seamless blend of espresso and steamed milk. And if you take one ingredient away, you don't have a latte. And what we need to do is take that most routine, boring weekly meeting that we go to and say, what could we do to add some vitality, to some energy? And can I give you a quick example?
Please do, yeah.
Okay, so I have a client who's a scientist, and when he makes presentations to fellow scientists within this organization, he said, I have to use slides, I have to use PowerPoint, or it looks like I'm not prepared. He said, I don't think it's a good idea, but I've got to do it. And he called me one day and he said, oh, I figured it out. I was putting my presentation together and I figured I'm going to have about 50 slides, which apparently was pretty common in that organization. And he said, I thought, what's the minimum number of slides I could use and get my point across? And he said, I got it down to 5. And he said, what happened is everybody thought, oh, he's prepared. And because I only had 5 slides, I wasn't reading slides the whole time. So there was a lot more opportunity for conversation. He said, I covered the same material, but now people were engaged. He said it was a very simple little tweak, if you will, that allowed something different to happen. It was the same audience, the same time of day, the same bad coffee. It was just, he said, well, what if we did this? What if, and so I think those tiny little moments are just there all over the place if we just pay attention. And I got tons of examples, but that probably will do for now.
And if you talk about it in your book, and one of the things that you talk about is this kind of ongoing kind of lament from leaders that you talk to, who just kind of say with kind of with great frustration, why is it just that people just don't get it?
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for cleaning that up for our
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, there is another version.
Yeah.
But why? I mean, just to ask the question, why do you think people don't get it in organizations?
Actually, I think they do get it. I think we're asking the wrong question. Is sometimes, and now sometimes people don't understand what we're talking about. It, so it's up to us to give our message in a way that people go, "Oh, I see what he's talking about." But that doesn't mean they're going to go along. It just means they understand what we're talking about. I think the deeper question is, why don't they like it? And what about this idea scares them? And that usually is not a welcome conversation inside an organization. You know, a leader often doesn't say, okay, so what don't you like about this idea? I mean, that would be, boy, that would be a gutsy thing to do, but could be a very powerful one. The issue quite often is that changes scare people, and not scare them in some little way. I mean, it's like my survival. It's the amygdala fires, adrenaline is flowing, and I can't hear all the facts and figures stuff now because I'm worried about my job and my career and am I going to lose face, all of that sort of stuff. That is the huge thing. It's the reason that I've been able to have a career working with support and resistance, is because of that little pocket right there is where I would say most of the problems come when we don't get support.
Yeah. I always find when I hear people talking about it, people say, "Oh, I embrace change and I welcome change," and inside of me, my little voice is going, "No, you don't." You like the idea of it, and you might like it for other people. You might like other people to change, but you don't want to change. And is that? Do you think is that true? Do we all have this kind of resistance to change?
Well, I think some of us like change more than others, but resistance to change is actually, it's part of our survival mechanism. I mean, there are things that that we both had to say no to in order to find this time when we could talk to each other, and so other people might see that as resistance. I see it as making a good decision. So resistance is a good controlling mechanism. Like, I don't know if I should walk down that alley. It's a natural part of who we are. The problem is, I don't think sometimes when we make a decision for ourselves, we're not aware of what it's going to mean. So for instance, at least here in the States, people who join exercise clubs and that, I hate, and I've been a member for years and years. I hate to go the day after New Year's.
By the way, that's not just in the U.S. Believe me.
Okay, all right.
That's a global phenomena.
Yeah, and what happens? People go, okay, this is the year I'm getting my life together, and they go, and then they realize, oh, I got to get up at 5:30 in the morning and drive here and hope I can get on the machines I want to get on. Oh. And a month or two later, I mean, within 6 weeks, the place is mine again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other gym rats too, but it's
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but we want. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, sorry.
Well, so I actually think the analogy of our New Year's resolutions can be very helpful for us. Is that we can have great ideas and say, wow, I want to do this big change. I want to get people involved. I want to hear what they have to say. And then life takes over and we are so busy. And so even though I thought I was going to be expansive, now all I've got is 30 minutes in a staff meeting that I can handle this. And all I feel like I have time to do is to talk. And so I think our best laid plans, the Robert Burns kind of thing, can be our undoing.
Yeah. And you talk about in the book, I mean, because for leaders in business, I mean, it's such a common topic is that, because you got to lead change because it's a natural part and markets and the environments are changing constantly. But you got a great, I think in your book, you call leading change without migraines.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you lead change without migraines?
This is I was going to say, well, just read my book. I think it's really a mindset. way that there are going to be headaches with change. I mean, some changes are just very complex. I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces. But the reason I use migraines is when people tell me about the headaches they have from change, it's quite often because of the people problem.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get those people to go along. I can't get, this or that. And if people started treating themselves and others differently, I think we'd have fewer headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen very, very busy executives do just that. And they seem bright, committed. They do good work for their organizations, but they're not getting wrapped up. I remember one time the chief operating officer, a huge, like Fortune 100 company, somebody in the group started during the Q&A, started pointing at him and saying, "What are you guys doing about?" I mean, now that would give a lot of us migraines or a headache or something. And he said, "That's a really good question." Kind of on the same tone of voice I just did. And he said, I really wish I had a good answer for you. It's something those of us in the executive office talk about a lot, and we're not coming up with good answers. And then he pulled back. There's this whole audience. And he said, "If any of you have any suggestions, we need fresh ideas. I am more than happy to listen to those." And when I would talk to other people who knew him, said, "Oh yeah, he's like that all the time." Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean his life wasn't hard in that, but somebody who attacked him, instead of treating it as attack, he was much more like a skilled martial artist and just allowing that person to use his own energy. Yeah.
It's interesting. And when we're actually leading people through change, I mean, one of the challenges is that people feel that the change is being done to them, right? Rather than going along with us. So how do we manage that resistance without people feeling that they've been, bludgeoned into submission?
Okay. Well, I think, first of all, I think the first thing is, it's something I refer to as you need to know what's on the list. And I've identified resistance and support at 3 different levels. And this is really quick. And it's basically, I don't get it, I don't like it, or I don't like you, if it's resistance. And what you need is people to understand what we're talking about. They need to like it. Meaning they need to be willing to be engaged. They're enthusiastic, and they need to have sufficient trust and confidence in us that they're going to say, I don't understand it all yet, but I trust John, so I'm going to go along. Yeah. When those 3 things are in place, you have a real opportunity. So when I work with a client, I want to know what's on the list. Like, do people understand what's going on or not? What's their emotional reaction, which they're probably not going to talk about much. Is it going to be positive or negative? And to what extent do they trust these men and women leading them? Then, once we got that picture, and sometimes it's not a pretty picture, I can say to the clients and say to myself as the outside consultant, because people see consultants aren't trustworthy in that, is, all right, so what do we do? How do we begin to build trust? How do we introduce this thing in a way that doesn't scare people? And the big thing, I think there's 2 big things. One is right at the beginning, before we even decide what we're going to do, that people are in the loop, so they know that there's either a challenge or opportunity out there. So once we say, we need to do something, people go, well, it's about time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a huge one that gets overlooked. We move right into planning, and we leave out tons and tons of stakeholders who could be there, not just supporting us, but coming up with great ideas.
Yeah. You talk about into that process to inject energy and engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we know, and it's coming up time and time again, particularly with the generation coming into the workforce, is the whole need for them to feel engaged. And I think one of the challenges is that sometimes they're managed by people who don't necessarily understand that. But anyway, that's a separate point. But from the work that you're doing, Rick, how do you inject the energy that sustains? Because as you mentioned earlier on, somebody can walk out on a cloud of euphoria, but a week later, it's kind of, well, what was that all about, right?
Right.
Nothing has happened. How do you inject that energy, and how do you actually sustain it?
Okay. Well, something that I've learned, it takes me a long time to learn things sometimes, is when I start working with a client, I start off before they've said yes or I've said yes with two questions. And the first question is, scale of 1 to 5, how important is it going to be for you to build support for this and sustain support? 1 to 5. And if they say, well, a 3, I go, I don't think we should work together, because the problem is you're going to get support when it's easy to do it. Hey, why don't we bring pizzas in on Friday, by golly? I mean, it's going to be these little things, and it's going to keep sending the wrong message. So if you're a 4 or 5, you don't have to be skilled at it, but if you've got that mindset of 4 or 5, we could work together. But the second question is the one, first time I ever asked it in a group, they all started kind of laughing and looking away. And I said, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it for you to be influenced by the people you're trying to influence? And there you go. I like the moment, because everybody has to, what does that mean? Yeah. And if you're not willing to be influenced by those other people, then any of the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, or the many other people who work with the human side of change, it's just not going to work. It's going to come across as manipulative. It'll be like the second volume of Machiavelli's book that he never published. It's like, how does make it look like we're good people? And so I think that really is a starting point. And then the other thing is, I really think that we need, I refer to it in the book as an energy GPS. And this is not a product, by the way, but it's just like I rely on the GPS in my car. I think we need the same thing when we're working on a project. So I can't tell you how many times I've come out of big meetings, and the leaders go, wow, that was great. Hey, Mary, those slides, man, that was, and they're complimenting each other, but they're not getting any feedback from the audience. So a GPS that that didn't go over so well, or wow, you got a lot of people on your side, and you need that kind of constant feedback loop. And if you do a big survey, and a lot of companies do these big surveys every 6 months or every year, that's way too long a time period. It's like I live in the Washington, D.C. area. It's like I turn on I forget to turn on my GPS, and I drive through 3 days and go, I wonder why I'm not in Chicago yet. And then I, turn it on. Well, of course, nobody would do that, but in organizations, we do that all the time. Oh, in 6 months, when we're at that stage, we're going to see how things are going. Before that meeting on Monday, I need to know.
So what are the things that you do to gauge that? So you go in, you do your announcement, okay, without kind of walking off and applauding yourself because you had a great slide deck and you sounded brilliantly and you look great, and wasn't that a wonderful performance I just delivered? How do you gauge whether it had the impact that you were looking for or not?
For starters, for some leaders, that's really almost impossible for them to do, because they don't want anything coming to burst their bubble. Okay, but let's say for those leaders who do, I would say, all right, what's the easiest way right now that you could take in other information? Forget about the sycophants who are going to be around you going, hey, nice job, Rick, nice job, John, and they'll go, oh, everybody knows somebody like that who'd be willing to tell it like it is. And I would say, all right, so how about that after that meeting on Monday or whatever it is? How about just spending a couple minutes or just have a cup of coffee with that person and just say, hey, don't name names, but what's the word on the street? What's your reaction? Yeah. I remember a VP in a big company had a lot of people, like it's in the States, there are these informal weather forecasters who are out in the suburbs and way out in the country. And so people on TV would say, hey, we talked to the Erlenborns out and da-da-da, and they, that's sort of thing. That you've got people there who can tell you boy, that didn't go over, or wow, people are really excited, or people are confused. Right, and okay. It's that availability and the willingness to take information in. And then there's lots of informal ways. And I could go into more of that, but let me not.
Yeah.
Right
okay. Just you talk about in the book about, these, what you talk about, the pockets of energy that can either work for you or can derail you.
Yeah.
When you're talking about those pockets of energy, what do you mean by those pockets of energy?
Okay. I think any big change, any big project that needs the support of other people, and that phrase is key. Any project that needs the support of others, there are going to be 4 predictable areas where energy could just, you could just really capture that energy, that lightning in a bottle, or you could miss that opportunity, or that energy could still be there but work against you. So here are the 4, and I'm going to talk about them in terms of energy, like what to look for. The first is people who need to support you need to feel a sense of urgency, not just read all the data sheet. They got to go, oh, they're looking, it's one thing to look at all those slides, and I'm not opposed to slides, but what the goal always ought to be, oh, look at that. That's exciting. That's bad, whatever. But there's got to be that kind of fire in their belly. We better do something. Then the second stage, and that stage is often missed. We don't even touch on it much. The second one is what we think of as a planning phase. And the energy I look for there is anticipation. People really are anticipating possibilities. They're glad to be part of it. There's an excitement in, wow, we could do this. Let's talk about that. Let's play with this idea over here. That's the woman who walked out of that meeting, her feet weren't hitting the ground. It's that kind of feeling that needs to happen. So what I look for during that planning phase is their energy. The third one is where you turn that plan into to action, where you implement it. And as I said earlier, that's a place where a lot of changes go to die, that the leaders get done and then they pass it off to somebody. I remember I was working with some planners one time and I had them stand in these 4 pockets of energy. Everybody in that room stood in the first and second pocket, that urgency and the planning, the anticipation. And I said, why? And they said, oh man, that's where the excitement is. You get to take stuff that nobody's ever thought of before, and you get good people together. And I said, that's great. But you notice anything else? Now everybody's standing. He's got these 2 pockets over here. And they said, oh, no wonder we get along so well. I said, yeah, that's swell. You notice anything else? And they go, no. I said, nobody's standing over here in implementation. What happens when a project gets there? And I'm glad this is a video. Somebody said, oh, we hand it off. And that, by the way, if you don't follow sports, that is not a handoff.
Yeah.
And I said, who would you be handing it off to? And they got silent for a moment and said, that's our problem. We come up with these great ideas and then we just put it out there as if somebody's going to pick it up. So what you need at the kind of energy you need at the third stage is mastery. Just as an athlete or a musician, they sweat the small stuff. They want to get it right. So it's not enough just to fill in the form and go, okay, well, it's 4 o'clock, let's get out of here. It's like, no, this isn't right. It's that dedication. And one thing that really helps the dedication, obviously leaders are still behind it, but it is the 4th pocket of energy. And that is, you're actually getting results from this whole thing. And the energy I'm looking for is resolve. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to one leader one time when I was working on the batteries not included map, and she said, we do great in all, when we make a case, urgency, we plan, we implement, we do a really good job there. And that's where it ends. What we measure and call it success is, did we do it on time, within budget? Did we get the bugs out of the software? And she said, all that's important, of course, but we never measure, did it make a difference? Yeah. And if we're in a project and we can see specifically that's where we're going, and we believe that that's important, that can be a huge motivator. And sometimes we just garble up the goals with just too many platitudes, and you remember the company Enron?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I remember I was writing a paper on corporate visions, and this is after the fall of Enron and all the scandals. And I did I don't even know if it's still on the internet, but I typed in Enron vision statement. Their vision statement is so inspiring. I mean, if all you knew was what was in their vision statement, their commitment to people and doing it right, you go, wow, I want to work there.
Yeah.
So the problem is you get these platitudes that anybody can write. What's needed is that people go, oh, that's where we're headed. So we really got to make that work. And all of those things are pockets of energy that just when we're in any of those pockets, we need to say, are we getting the energy we need, or are people sleepwalking through this?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because you see it continuously happening in projects, don't you? That they kick off with a great fanfare and everything is done, and then it just kind of peters out, and we end up kind of either rejigging it to become another project because we never actually finished the first one, and we actually then we call it another name, and then we go again, but we keep on making the same mistakes.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm interested in from the work that you do is, because when we're looking at, dealing with change and managing change, which is what everybody is doing on a day-to-day basis, what I see as an issue in many times is that people see, okay, well, we've got this change project, but it's kind of separate to the day-to-day job, right? I'm busy doing the day-to-day job, and if I've got a bit of time, I'll actually give this. How do we actually make it the day-to-day job?
I wish more people ask that question. And leadership it's a great question. It takes guts from the most senior people to say, okay, John, Rick, Mary, Sylvia, I want you to dedicate your time or X number of hours a week to this project. And if other people are coming to you saying, oh, but you got to do this, you got to do this, you can't have 7 top priority items. It doesn't work that way. And I remember when Jack Welch was the head of GE, I mean, they had projects going all the time. And there's something that he supported. And he said, our project teams need to have, I don't know if he said autonomy, but there needs to be a structure and a power. And he used this example. There used to be television variety shows, and so there'd be singers and dancers. And I remember there would be a guy who would have dowel rods, these big rods, and he'd put a plate on one and he'd start spinning it, and then he'd take another one. So pretty soon he's got 5 or 6 of these things going. And Welsh was telling that story, and he said, that what that guy knew is, if I take on one more plate, all of these start to teeter. He said, you as a project leader have got to know when that is, and then you have got to have the guts to say, I can't take on another project. What do you want me to give up?
Yes.
Oh,
wow.
And
yeah.
That, and once again, it's a mindset, and it's a thing of courage on the part of the leader. But it gives us, but if you say, no, fit it in, you'll do it, it's an illusion that it's actually going to work. I mean, if it does work, that's great, but I haven't seen it as a successful strategy.
Well, I mean, I love that, because working with teams, I say, the truth is that not until kind of relatively recently in the English language do we have the plural of priority, right? Because priority is one. Right? If you think about it, you can't actually have the plural of priority. You can't have really priorities, right? But and my work with companies, I always say, okay, what's the top 3 priorities for this business right now? And that always ends up in a long discussion, because there's always, but we've loads of priorities. Well, actually, you don't. You've none, right? Because none of them. There are so many. But I think that what you're talking about here, this whole thing, I mean, I think it's such a powerful subject. I think it's such a necessary subject. And also, I mean, I see it facing it in all different ways in industries, but even one right now, which is, let's be honest, is not one that we've come across before, is where people are moving from working virtually to, well, what way are we going to work going forward? It's not going to be go back the way we were. It's not going to be as we are right now, 100% virtual. But so what's it look like? And that's a big kind of space in between and people are going to have to manage that change. And I think that's a huge. So I think your book, The Seizing Moments of Possibility, is very timely in terms of doing that, because I think it's really helpful. It's a great book, great subject. Where can people get it, Rick? How can they get the book? How can they get their hands on it? And how can they get in touch with you?
Thank you. Well, first of all, the ebook version of this is free. I wanted it to be free. I hope people will read it, like it, pass it along to their friends. And the way to get that is from the homepage of my website, which is rickmaurer.com, and it's RickMaurer, rickmaurer.com. And if you go to that page, for some unknown reason to me, if you wait half a second, this little box will appear on the homepage in the lower right, and you just put in your email address and you got the book. There's no 7-step process you need to go through. You don't have to, no credit card, none of that. I am going to be selling paperback copies and an audiobook later this summer. But my main thing is I really want these free ones. I mean, that's my primary goal. I've just had people say, yeah, but I want to get copies for my team, or I listen to books. And so I'm going to put those on Amazon and sell them. But for right now, the free book, and frankly, that's what I hope people will get. So it's
Okay,
rickmaurer.
well, listen, that is great. Before we wrap up, and this has been great, Rick. Thank you. It's been fantastic.
Oh, it's
and
a joy for me.
I have taken more time than I said I would. So my apologies, but I've enjoyed it. But two questions that I'm just curious about, and you as an author, you've authored a number of books. A book other than one of your own that has had a significant impact upon you. What's the book and what impact did it have?
Well, first of all, there are many, but one that really stands out is called Flawless Consulting by Peter Block, B-L-O-C-K. It's a fairly old book now, and it's not, the title might sound like it's arrogant. That's not what he means. He means, how do we do it? How do we consult in a way where we are real, where we are authentic? And he said, if we're doing that, and have integrity, then we're doing it flawlessly. That doesn't mean we're going to succeed every time, but it means we're going to do it well. And one of the things I like about his book and I like about him is it's that basic. It's that important. It's how I've seen him treat people. It's how I've seen him treat me. And so I go back to the book from time to time, mainly, I mean, I think I probably could recite the book from memory, but it's something about kind of being in that space, if you will, that like, oh, he's a model for me. In fact, in the early days of consulting, when I would be getting stuck, I literally would say to myself, what would Peter do?
Right. Okay. Great.
And obviously I knew what to do, but it was suddenly I go, oh, well, Peter would be calm right now. Or Peter would go, that's a really dumb idea. Or he would, there would be, and it helped me have the courage to, actually say what I was saying. Yeah.
That's great. That's one I haven't come across before. So that goes on the reading list. So thank you for that. Second question is daily rituals. Do you have them? What are they? And what do they do for you?
Well, I exercise every day. I do interval stuff. I do strength training, all that. I love doing it, and I love how I feel doing that. And that's really important. If I miss a day, I may take a day off once a week. I think that's a good thing to do. But if I miss like a regular day, like if I miss today, I'm going to be, I'm not going to feel as well. I mean, it's, so that's important. The other big thing I do is I do mindfulness meditation every morning. And I don't have a religious anchor for any of that. I simply pay attention to my breathing. And I may do it just for a few minutes. I might do it up to 20 minutes, but it really has become part of who I am. And it really helps in my work. What it really helps in is, and I talk about this in the book, is I can be a really frantic driver. I'm a good driver, but man, somebody cuts me off. I have this rich vocabulary that I learned while I was in the Army and in college, and I love to use it. And it's kind of dangerous in a car to roll down your window and use it. And I remember one time I was riding with my wife and somebody had cut me off, and I rolled down the window and I'm yelling. And Kathy said, Rick, where we live, it's legal to carry loaded weapons in a car. Now if you want to keep doing that, do it, but don't do it when I'm in the car. And I had been dabbling in mindfulness meditation at the time, and I thought I need to take it more seriously. And honestly, I'm not a perfect person. People don't come, to me for wisdom, but I'll notice, I started noticing when I would get in the car, I would start to get tense. Like I haven't even gone out of the driveway, and I could just feel that, and I'd relax. Or I'd be out on the Beltway, which is this nasty road that goes around Washington, D.C. And if there'd be a lot of traffic, once again, I can feel the muscles, and just noticing that, I would get calmer. I mean, not in, and so it makes a huge difference for me, and helps me be more present. So,
well, curiously enough, actually, I share both of those rituals with you, and I would absolutely agree on both. If I don't do the exercise, I'm just going to be slightly out, slightly off.
Yeah.
And the breathing meditation, I think, just helps me. What I always think it helps me do, it helps me to respond rather than react. And
beautifully said.
I think that's really what you're talking about there.
Yes.
Rick, this has been fantastic. I really have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed what you're saying. I love the message that you're giving, and I know that the audience will love it here. And I'd love to come back, and maybe we would do another one in the near future.
Yeah. Anytime. I would love to do that. This has really been a pleasure, John.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.